Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
Ted.
And today we have a true D&D monster BFF with the Death Knight mounted on a dragon.
Jump down to the description below where you can find Nerdarchy the newsletter. It's a great way to get RPG tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
In this monster BFF, I am looking at the young red shadow dragon on page 85 of the monster manual.
And I am looking at the Death Knight on page 47 of your 5th edition monster manual.
This is the highest level, most powerful monster BFF we've ever put forth, I believe.
Indeed. And we kind of looked at the math of what the DMG says of where this would be a good challenge for a party, and we kind of disagree with it.
Yeah, basically it ends up being either a deadly encounter for a 19th level party or basically a hard encounter for a 20th level party. We're calling bullshit on that one. The math really breaks down in the challenge rating, especially when you get up higher, and it just doesn't work really well. I look at the hit points and go, okay, these two monsters combined have about 350 hit points. I know a high level party can do most of that in a single round. So
I've seen a first round play by a party of that level where one person is doing 180 damage.
So I would actually run this encounter much lower. I would probably, without looking at specific characters, off the top of my head, say 15th level.
Yeah, depending upon what kind of magic items the players have, depending upon how they're spec'd out. If you've got players that are really gearing towards min-maxing, or I would look at this as a 15th.
Optimization, yeah.
I would look at this as a 15th to 17th level encounter. And
so you guys, you can look at your characters, you can decide. But I usually just look and go, hey, what's the most damage my monsters can do in a round? How much can a particular player take? And then I go, well, what can they do? And so there is one thing you can do to make this encounter a little bit harder, and it would make sense. A retinue of shadows following them around, and shadows are very weak. They're going to have only one purpose and one purpose only, in my opinion.
Yeah, suck up attacks.
Suck up attacks, and also they can use the help action. I would just use them to use the help action and give my other monsters advantage on their attacks. And they're just to annoy the players. I like the idea of the Death Knight and the young red shadow dragon and the Death Knight mounting it. Mm-hmm. One of the cool things you don't have to worry about with the shadow dragon and the Death Knight is necrotic damage where the Death Knight is involved. Like, he could literally be in the middle of the players swinging his sword while the dragon is doing strafing runs, breathing on them. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to bother him one bit.
Absolutely. So now, looking at this particular character, he's got an armor class of 20 for the Death Knight. If you're looking to make the combat a little bit harder, you could actually have his shield be a magic item and incorporate that into his own defenses.
As well as his sword, if you wanted to.
Indeed, and that would wind up, sprucing this up to be a more challenging encounter. I kind of find it frustrating when you have a person who could be using a magic item provide loot that would make him or her harder to defeat. And it's like, oh, well, you find all the stuff. Well, why wasn't he using that in the battle?
It's in a chest somewhere, yeah.
Now, I know that you've personally had loot rolled up, and a monster or adversary goes and uses a potion to heal or to cause an effect. And that's, he gets the advantage and we don't get that treasure.
No, absolutely not. It's the way it works. And yeah, if you have intelligent monsters and they can use the items, they should be using them. It only makes sense. Like, no, we just keep this in a pile in case somebody needs it, like an adventure after they murder me. The other thing I would do too is I would use the variant for spells on my dragon. I would give them to him. But because the nature of the shadow dragons, I would try and take things that dispel light and create darkness is what I would focus on, because I want my shadow dragon to get those resistances to as many attacks as possible so it can last longer.
And I would wind up giving I would modify the Death Knight spells to be as helpful in that regards as possible.
Well, he does have dispel magic. He doesn't have darkness, so that's one I might, I would consider putting on there.
Take out magic weapon, give him a magic weapon, and replace that with darkness.
Yeah, that's not bad, and it's not like total overkill or anything like that.
I mean, heck, even if it's a +1 weapon, that's an extra +1 hit and damage for him.
Now, the interesting thing with this monster BFF compared to many of our others, most of the time they're like an encounter, right? Well, this could be a campaign arc.
Mm-hmm.
You could literally, put this duo in your campaign world and lead up to this final battle, which is going to be the dragon and the knight and all these shadows that are going to harass your players.
Now, I will say that if you use this particular combination as a lead up, the players are going to be more prepared for dealing with this particular adversary set, and they'll have probably done their research to find out what specifically they're going to need. And if they've prepared themselves for it, it's going to be an easier encounter. They
might know to stock up on things that are going to cause light, but at the same time, like, we discussed, our dragon and our Death Knight are going to do things to try and counter that. There's that, and you're absolutely right. And so then the question, is, like, how would we introduce these guys into our campaign? Like, I kind of feel like, a dark and foreboding keep someplace.
And maybe even, in a land where the mountains or the overgrown trees block as much of the sunlight as possible. Perhaps there's the land itself actually steals some of the light so it doesn't get through. We're playing in a fantasy world. You can make up whatever kind.
Well, it would totally make sense for this place to be cursed.
Right.
Like if you wanted to add lair actions and regional effects, you absolutely could. Even though these monsters don't call for them, I definitely see if you have a Shadow Dragon and a Death Knight that have resided in the same place for hundreds of years, that could definitely infect the land. They'd be like a cancer upon the world. Like if you wanted to introduce a necropolis in your world, these guys could definitely be the rulers of it.
Yeah.
The Death Knight could be the Lord. The dragon is his faithful steed and mount. The thing about the Shadow Dragons is they either have lived in the Shadowfell for a long time, or they were born there. But it also makes mention that they like to come to the material plane because there's more opportunity for them to do what dragons do, and that's hoard things.
Mm-hmm.
And you could definitely do it. You could definitely do a thing that perhaps a knight brings back, a dark knight brings back this dragon to the prime material plane. The knight is actually immortal, but from spending so much time with this creature of the dragon from the Shadowfell, perhaps, or maybe even living there a little bit too long himself, when he's supposed to pass from this world, he doesn't.
He's just a silent. You know what? I'm just going to carry on. It's all good.
And well, it's not so much that it becomes his curse. He can't. He gets trapped, and he can't move on to the next world. Him and his dragon companion start this reign of terror on the material plane, perhaps starting up this necropolis. I mean, the dragon, every time it kills something with its breath weapon, they're coming back as shadows. The Death Knight has the ability to just command undead. This place could definitely be like a bastion for undead. Like the region just draws them.
So the other thing is, if the area is cursed and he's drawing these shadows, perhaps he had a desire to rule a kingdom, and for whatever reason his mission didn't succeed by the normal standards. He falls into this curse of being a Death Knight. And he decides, well, you know what? I'm gonna rule over something, and he's ruling over these shadows, and he's commanding them to go about their normal lives in this cursed town, and he's trying to spread the darkness. So when he goes on his raids, turning these townsfolk into shadows, he's doing that to to further his kingdom, and perhaps the real issue is this darkness is spreading by these deeds that these guys are doing.
It just keeps creeping out.
Right, by the year, slowly, it moves, and perhaps that's something that that's what the players have to actually deal with.
What if these guys aren't the real bad guys? What if they're lackeys?
Okay.
What if they serve a necromancer, a lich, or perhaps they served the lich until it moved on, becoming a demi-lich, but the demi-lich still resides in their keep, and basically there's a throne room that just doesn't get used anymore.
That's an idea.
The skull is sitting on the throne still, and like your players, they defeat. Or it could even be in the treasure vault. Mm-hmm. But your players, they defeat these guys. They think this is like the culmination of the campaign, and they go to collect a reward, and boom, pops up a demi-lich right after this big battle. Then like that might be a way of staggering the encounter. So that if you're using it for higher level characters like 18 to 20. Now all of a sudden there's another threat that comes at them right after fighting, which should have been a resource draining battle. Even if your players mow through these guys easily, I feel like your spellcasters had to drop their big spells on them. The fighter probably action surged. People are using stuff that they had to take these guys out fast. So that's kind of my thought, and then like whether it's an actual lich or a demi-lich.
Well, demi-lich itself is a challenge 18, and then the lich itself is a challenge 21.
Yes.
So right off the bat, battle to battle, that's gonna be a bit rough, especially if.
No, it's not. We already know that the challenge rating system is broken. It doesn't work. And like if you because how many hit points does a demi-lich have? Like that's a spell, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the element of surprise is the best it can hope for. And even then, like if I was going to use that demi-lich, I might fill the room with flying skulls as well, or flaming skulls as well, just to pepper the players with magic missiles and have all the flaming skulls look the same as a demi-lich.
Right.
So that and it's part of it's a trap essentially, right? So they don't really know what's what.
Right.
And then you can have them fly around and mix up back to back. I don't see any problem with that encounter at all. They'll both throw it. The Lich will be harder, but I still think they can take them.
The Lich itself only has 135 hit points. So, like, it's got legendary actions, and it could have lair actions as well. This one's going to be a little bit more, especially, it's got animate dead and some other things that it could do. If the other group managed to actually bring down one of the party members, it'd be awesome to turn it against their party.
Have them show up and be like, boom! Meet Bob, your old companion. Now my slave for eternity.
Well, I mean, it could go invisible first and then start, doing things to set the area. And you could they just might not know what causing it until the Lich is ready to actually engage.
Yeah, like if you were going to go with the higher level party, do 19 or 20th level, I would say run these guys kind of like out of the book the way they are, and then drop the Lich on them. Maybe the demi-lich too, because like I said, you can have fun with it if you fill that room with flaming skulls, and all the flaming skulls look the same as the demi-lich skull.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, which is which, and then eventually the players will figure it out within a round or two. But still, that round or two, they're getting peppered by the flaming skulls and the lich,
life drains, all good stuff.
All that fun stuff.
So, what do you guys think of this particular monster BFF? If you want to use this in your campaign, let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over at nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy. Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. Hang out with this nerd,
Ted.
And today we have a true D&D monster BFF with the Death Knight mounted on a dragon.
Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get RPG tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
In this monster BFF, I am looking at the young red shadow dragon on page 85 of the Monster Manual.
And I am looking at the Death Knight on page 47 of your 5th edition Monster Manual.
This is the highest level, most powerful monster BFF we've ever put forth, I believe.
Indeed. And we kind of looked at the math of what the DMG says of where this would be a good challenge for a party, and we kind of disagree with it.
Yeah, basically it ends up being either a deadly encounter for a 19th level party or basically a hard encounter for a 20th level party. We're calling bullshit on that one. The math really breaks down in the challenge rating, especially when you get up higher, and it just doesn't work really well. I look at the hit points and go, okay, these two monsters combined have about 350 hit points. I know a high level party can do most of that in a single round. So
I've seen a first round 15th to 17th level encounter.
And so you guys, you can look at your characters, you can decide. But I usually just look and go, hey, what's the most damage my monsters can do in a round? How much can a particular player take? And then I go, well, what can they do? And so there is one thing you can do to make this encounter a little bit harder, and it would make sense. A retinue of shadows following them around, and shadows are very weak. They're
by a party of that level, where one person is doing 180 damage.
So I would actually run this encounter much lower. I would probably, without looking at specific characters, off the top of my head, say 15th level.
Yeah, depending upon what kind of magic items the players have, depending upon how they're spec'd out. If you got players that are really, really gearing towards min-maxing, or I would look at this as a 15.
Optimization, yeah.
I would look at this as a 15.